Support for this podcast comes from the Central Valley Journalism Collaborative, connecting communities with the resources, infrastructure, and networks to ensure a vibrant local free press.
From KVPR in Fresno, this is Central Valley Daily. It's Wednesday, January 22nd. I'm Elizabeth Arkalian. Republicans are officially in control of the White House and both chambers of Congress. So what are the priorities right now for Valley Democrats?
Our goal really is to keep people educated and aware, making sure that their rights are not being violated by the incoming administration.
Hear our conversation with the leader of the Fresno County Democratic Party in just a few minutes. But first, today's headlines. President Donald Trump, in his first days in office, is already going after California's water resources. As KVPR's Rachel Livenall reports, the White House is ordering action on the Sacramento-San Joaquin Delta.
President Trump ordered two departments to immediately look at water flowing along the Delta. He's pushing the agencies to route more water to southern parts of the state that he says are in desperate need. Trump first tried to push this in his first term, but that effort was halted by a lawsuit from California that said changing the water flows would further endanger a critical fish species. It's known as the Delta smelt. Water on the Delta is fed by the Sacramento and San Joaquin rivers and snowmelt. Farmers facing drought in the Central Valley have long pushed to get more of the water sent south. The president's order to do just that will be revisited within 90 days. For KVPR News, I'm Rachel Livenall.
House representatives from the Valley are mixed on President Trump's return to the White House. Republican Vince Fong tells local news outlets he's excited to see Trump strengthen the border and decrease crime. Meanwhile, Democrat Jim Costa says he's wary of Trump's promises because they don't always hold true. All Valley congressmen attended Trump's inauguration on Monday. California state lawmakers have formally introduced bills to fund fire relief in Los Angeles. Cap Radio's Laura Fitzgerald reports.
The two budget bills devote a total of $2.5 billion to fire recovery in the Los Angeles region. That recovery includes rebuilding homes, schools, and businesses. Funds will also go towards wildfire resiliency projects. The bills were introduced in the ongoing special session, which Governor Gavin Newsom called to secure funds to sue President Donald Trump's administration. He expanded the session to include wildfire relief last week. The state's legal defense fund against Trump and fire relief budget will be voted on separately. Lawmakers are set to hear the relief proposal in committee hearings on Wednesday. In Sacramento, I'm Laura Fitzgerald.
A so-called planet parade is happening this month. According to NASA, 4 planets, Mars, Venus, Saturn, and Jupiter, should be visible with the naked eye after sunset. The space agency says seeing planets lined up isn't all that unusual, but what might surprise you is seeing 4 or 5 of them at once. You can search for this planetary alignment by looking southwest at night.
Join KVPR for an open house Thursday, January 23rd from 5 till 7 p.m. at the station's broadcast center in Clovis. Meet the team, enjoy a studio tour, and graze on hors d'oeuvres. RSVP at kvpr.org/open house.
And now to our main story. President Trump is officially in office, and while many Republicans are celebrating, many Democrats are now going back to the drawing board. Nationally, Democrats lost the White House and the Senate. Republicans held on to the House. And amid this national sea change, we spoke with a local Republican leader last week. This week, we wanted to check in with Democratic leaders. We wanted to hear their plans for the party moving forward. Ruben Zarate is the chair of the Fresno County Democratic Party. I recently spoke with him about his party's response to Trump's re-election. He also shared his thoughts on Fresno County flipping from blue to red in November.
Well, it was somewhat of a surprise because we work really hard at our local party. We have a lot of volunteers. We've had 40 to 60 volunteers a day for the last 2 months heading into the election. And we really worked hard. We did a lot of phone banking. Of course, the turnout, how it happened, the end result, it wasn't what we were looking for, obviously. And then when you say flipped, I would say it didn't flip. I would say it was more people, just Democrats that were registered didn't go out to vote. So we still outnumber Republicans in Fresno County, Democrats, but we just had people that didn't come out to vote here in Fresno County. And then, of course, throughout the United States or throughout California, the other counties, they basically had the same results. So just a lot of Democrats just did not come out to vote and support.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was very surprising in lieu of what we're looking at with the Trump administration and all the threats and things that he talks about, which we're pretty confident that he will attempt to do.
When you mentioned that the Democrats didn't come out to vote, I'm curious because things did, in all fairness, get kind of complicated for Democrats when Joe Biden withdrew his nomination and Kamala Harris stepped in. Do you think that made a difference at the local level or specifically for Fresno County?
Yeah, it did. It certainly did. Ms. Harris had just a very short time to start her campaign and she kind of hit the ground running. And I mean, it was just like very fast. And so I think perhaps maybe that was people just did not really want to participate after Mr. Biden left. And so, yeah, certainly that was problematic, I think. Had she been the nominee, outright and had time to mobilize and do a better job in getting out her message, I think certainly that probably would have helped us.
A ceasefire was recently announced between Israel and Hamas. The war started in October 2023 and has lasted a lot longer than many people thought it would last. It's divided a lot of people. I'm curious if you think that sort of fractured the Democratic Party in any way, and if you could weigh in on how a national issue like that could impact local voters.
Yeah, well, certainly there was a lot of concern with that, and there was people on both sides. I mean, basically, we supported the president and his decision on their actions and their policy with Israel, and we went along with it. And then after we started seeing atrocities and we started seeing families being torn apart and killed by Israeli attacks, certainly that was very concerning to us. And after a certain amount of time, it just, became very apparent that wasn't the right thing for us to. I mean, we needed some change. We needed some policy change by President Biden, and we denounced the attacks that Israel put upon the Palestinians. And that's very, very sad and very tragic. But yeah, we believe that probably did have some impact, because on a lot of states that, like Michigan and some of the Rust Belt states, there's a heavy Muslim population. And so it probably, obviously we lost some of those states. And so, a lot of people didn't, either they voted Republican or they didn't vote at all. So, and that certainly was something that factor in the Democrats losing the election.
Last week, we spoke with Peter Halajian from the Fresno County Republican Party. He outlined why he supports the plans for mass deportations. I presume you feel the opposite. Can you explain why?
Sure. So the party does not because, there's families here that have been here for a long time that are working at getting citizenship, residency here in the United States. And so their applications are being processed, and these things are time consuming and they just don't happen overnight. And so these people are contributors to tax dollars. They do a lot of hard work. They do a lot of the heavy lifting that people here don't want to do these types of jobs. And so we have a lot of the immigrants that are here that are doing these jobs, and they contribute to the economy. I mean, can you imagine having people lose their jobs, and then what will happen to these who are going to do these jobs? What's going to happen to the economy and these
agriculture, construction?
Construction, correct. Yeah. So, I mean, there's just a big workforce from the Latin community alone, so we want to see families stay together. We feel that the church should be behind this and supporting this, but we feel that a lot of the churches and that support the Republicans have been supporting the political side of it and not the godly side of it and the human side of it. And so we feel that that's not the right direction. We feel that that's really not very Christian people that profess certain faith. Yeah, so we denounce all that. We support keeping families together.
What are some of the goals you have for the next couple of years for the Fresno County Democratic Party as we head toward the midterm elections?
Sure. Our goal really is to keep people educated and aware, making sure that their rights are not being violated by the incoming administration, and just making sure that we get people out to vote. Of course, education is key there, knowing what their issues are, and then just letting them know why it's important to vote Democrat.
Ruben Zarate, chair of the Fresno County Democratic Party. Thanks so much for your time.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity to be here today.
You can hear Central Valley Daily's conversation with the leader of the Fresno County Republicans. Just look for our January 17th episode. And that's today's show. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you like what you hear on the show, help support us by leaving a 5-star rating in your podcast app. We really appreciate your support. Today's episode was produced by Jonathan Linden and KVPR with support from the Central Valley Journalism Collaborative. I'm Elizabeth Arkalian. Find the latest local news anytime at kvpr.org.
We could all use a little help navigating the news these days. The Consider This podcast wants to give you a hand. 6 days a week, we'll help you make sense of the day's biggest news story and what it means for you in less than 15 minutes. Listen now to the Consider This podcast from NPR.